Winning in life does not always mean achieving something big. Most of the time, it means learning how to live peacefully, purposefully, and positively every single day. Life is not a race where the fastest wins. It is a journey where the wisest survives with a smile. Arun. Many people wait for a perfect day to feel happy. But the truth is, happiness is not something you find at the end of life. It is something you practice daily. If you want to win life every day, you don't need extraordinary talent or luck. You need a few simple rules applied consistently. The first rule is to start your day with gratitude. When you wake up and immediately complain, your mind enters a negative mood. But when you wake up and say, "Oh, thank you for this new day," your heart opens. Gratitude reminds us that even though life is imperfect, there is still so much to appreciate. A grateful person sees abundance where others see lack. The second rule is to focus on effort, not outcome. We suffer not because we work hard, but because we attach our happiness to results. When results don't match expectations, frustration follows. But when you focus on giving your best, peace follows automatically. Life rewards sincerity more than success. The third rule is to choose kindness over ego. Ego always wants to win arguments, prove points, and feel superior. Kindness wants to preserve relationships and inner peace. Many times, staying silent or letting go is not weakness, it is wisdom. You don't lose when you choose peace, you actually win freedom. The fourth rule is to accept people as they are. Expecting everyone to think, behave, or care like you is unrealistic. When expectations reduce, disappointment reduces. Acceptance does not mean approval. It means understanding that everyone is fighting their own internal battles. The fifth rule is to end the day with reflection. Ask yourself, did I grow today? Did I act with integrity? Did I act with integrity? Did I become better than yesterday? Even small improvements compound over time. When your days improve, your life automatically improves. Winning life every day is not about changing the world. It is about changing how you respond to the world. When your inner world is stable, the outer world loses its power to disturb you. Follow these simple rules and slowly, quietly, you will realize you are already winning life. Every day is not about reaching the top faster than others or collecting visible trophies that the world can applaud. It is about cultivating a quiet inner stability that remains steady, regardless of what happens outside. Many people believe that life will feel successful only when certain milestones are achieved. A promotion, financial security, recognition, or approval. Until then, they keep postponing their sense of fulfillment. This mindset turns life into a waiting room, where happiness is always scheduled for a future date that keeps getting delayed. True daily victory comes when you stop postponing peace and start living with awareness in the present moment. Inner peace is often misunderstood as passivity or lack of ambition, but it is neither. It is the ability to remain grounded while pursuing goals. When your inner world is calm, you can work harder, think clearer, and make better decisions. On the other hand, when the mind is constantly agitated by comparison, fear, and impatience, even great achievements feel empty. Many people reach the destination they chased for years only to realize that the joy they expected never arrived. This happens because success without inner balance feels like winning on paper but losing within. Daily achievement-focused living creates a dangerous illusion that your worth is measured by productivity and outcomes. On good days, you feel confident. On bad days, you feel like a failure. This emotional roller coaster is exhausting. Inner peace frees you from this trap. It teaches you that your value is not negotiable and does not fluctuate with circumstances. Gratitude also has a grounding effect during difficult days. Not every morning feels hopeful. Some days arrive with emotional weight, disappointment, or uncertainty. Gratitude in such moments is not about denying pain. It is about balancing it. Even in hardship, there is something stable to hold on to. A lesson learned, a strength developed, or simply the ability to endure. This balance prevents the mind from collapsing into negativity and keeps perspective intact. Starting the day with gratitude gradually rewires thinking patterns. Instead of constantly asking what is missing, the mind begins to ask what is already here. This shift reduces anxiety and comparison. When you recognize your own blessings, the urge to measure your life against others weakens. You become less reactive to social pressure and more anchored in your own journey. Over time, gratitude becomes more than a morning habit. It becomes a lens through which life is viewed. Challenges still exist, ambitions still matter, and responsibilities still demand effort. But gratitude ensures that while moving forward, you do not forget to stand firmly in the present. Days begin with calm rather than chaos, awareness rather than anxiety. This simple practice, repeated daily, quietly transforms ordinary mornings into foundations of emotional strength and inner balance. Focusing on effort rather than outcome is one of the most liberating shifts a person can make in life. Most emotional suffering does not come from hard work itself, but from the pressure we attach to results. When happiness becomes dependent on outcomes, every uncertainty feels threatening and every delay feels personal. The mind constantly jumps into the future, worrying about what will happen if things don't go as planned. This future-focused anxiety steals peace from the present moment, even when you are doing everything within your capacity. Effort is the only part of life that truly belongs to you. Outcomes are influenced by countless factors beyond your control: timing, other people's decisions, circumstances, and even luck. When you invest all your emotional energy into results, you give away your peace to variables you cannot manage. But when you anchor yourself in effort, you reclaim ownership of your experience. You begin to measure success by sincerity, discipline, and consistency rather than by applause or validation. People often misunderstand this approach as a lack of ambition, but it is actually the opposite. When you focus on effort, you work with greater intensity and honesty because fear of failure no longer paralyzes you. You show up fully, not because you are guaranteed success, but because doing your best becomes a matter of self-respect. This mindset builds inner confidence that does not collapse under external judgment. You know you have given your best, and that knowledge itself becomes a source of strength. Outcome obsession also distorts perspective. When results don't appear quickly, discouragement sets in. You begin to question your abilities, compare your journey with others, and feel inadequate. Effort-based living removes this comparison trap. Everyone's timeline is different, but effort is always meaningful. Each sincere action contributes to growth, even when progress is invisible. Seeds planted today do not bloom immediately, but they are still doing important work beneath the surface. Another benefit of focusing on effort is emotional stability. When results fluctuate, and they always do, your inner state remains steady. Success does not inflate the ego, and failure does not crush the spirit. You remain balanced, understanding that both are temporary experiences. This balance allows you to learn from mistakes instead of being consumed by them. Failure becomes feedback, not a verdict on your worth. Effort-centered living also deepens patience. You learn to respect the process instead of rushing toward the destination. This patience reduces burnout and frustration. When you stop demanding instant results, you allow growth to unfold naturally. The journey becomes more sustainable and less stressful. You still aim high, but you no longer punish yourself along the way. Over time, this mindset transforms the relationship with work and life. Effort becomes a form of devotion rather than obligation. You act with integrity even when no one is watching. Satisfaction comes from knowing that you showed up wholeheartedly, regardless of the outcome. When effort becomes the reward, life feels lighter. You continue moving forward with commitment, calmness, and quiet confidence, trusting that sincere effort never goes to waste, even if its rewards arrive in unexpected ways. Choosing kindness over ego is one of the most powerful yet misunderstood decisions a person can make. Ego constantly demands recognition, validation, and control. It wants to be right, to be admired, and to feel superior. Kindness, on the other hand, seeks harmony, understanding, and peace. When faced with conflict, ego asks, how do I win? While kindness asks, how do I respond without losing myself? This subtle difference shapes the quality of everyday life far more than people realize. Ego thrives on comparison. It measures self-worth by looking sideways at others. Who is ahead, who is behind, who is respected more? This habit creates constant inner tension because there will always be someone doing better in some way. Kindness frees you from this exhausting race. When you act with kindness, your sense of worth comes from alignment with values rather than external approval. You stop needing to prove anything, and in that freedom, the mind becomes lighter. In daily interactions, ego often pushes people to react impulsively. A harsh word, a disrespectful tone, or a misunderstanding can quickly escalate into conflict when ego takes charge. Kindness introduces a pause. It allows space between stimulus and response. Instead of reacting to the emotion of the moment, you respond with awareness. This does not mean suppressing feelings or tolerating disrespect. It means choosing a response that protects both self-respect and inner peace. As many people fear that choosing kindness makes them appear weak or vulnerable. In reality, it requires far greater strength to remain kind when provoked. Anyone can react in anger, but it takes emotional maturity to remain composed. Kindness is not submission. It is self-masturbation. It is self-mastery. When you refuse to let another person's behavior dictate your inner state, you reclaim control over your emotions. Kindness also transforms relationships. Ego focuses on being understood. Kindness focuses on understanding. When you listen without the need to interrupt or defend, trust naturally grows. People feel safe around those who do not constantly assert dominance or judgment. Over time, this creates deeper, more meaningful connections. Even difficult relationships become easier to navigate when kindness replaces the urge to control. Another important aspect of choosing kindness is recognizing that everyone carries invisible struggles. The person who speaks harshly may be overwhelmed. The one who seems indifferent may be dealing with pain. Kindness does not excuse harmful behavior, but it broadens perspective. This understanding softens resentment and prevents bitterness from taking root in the heart. Living with kindness over ego also brings long-term peace. Ego-driven victories are short-lived. They often leave behind guilt, regret, or damaged relationships. Kindness may not always bring immediate rewards, but it leaves no emotional residue. You sleep better knowing you acted with integrity. Over time, this inner clarity becomes a quiet source of confidence. Choosing kindness daily reshapes character. You become less reactive, more patient, and emotionally resilient. Life continues to present challenges, disagreements, and misunderstandings. But when kindness guides responses, the inner world remains undisturbed. This is not just a moral choice, it is a practical one. In choosing kindness over ego, you choose freedom, stability, and a deeper sense of fulfillment that no argument ever won can provide. Accepting people as they are is one of the most challenging yet liberating lessons in life. Much of our emotional suffering comes not from what people do, but from our expectation that they should behave differently. We unconsciously assume that others will think like us, value what we value, and respond the way we would in similar situations. When they don't, disappointment arises. Acceptance begins when we realize that every individual is shaped by unique experiences, conditioning, fears, and priorities that we may never fully understand. Acceptance does not mean agreement or approval. It means acknowledging reality without resistance. Oh, when you accept people as they are, you stop wasting emotional energy trying to change them. This energy can then be redirected toward improving your own responses, boundaries, and growth. Resistance to reality creates frustration. Acceptance creates clarity. Once you see people clearly, without the filter of expectation, you can decide how close or distant they should be in your life without bitterness. Expectations often come from attachment. We expect more from those we care about. And when those expectations are unmet, the pain feels personal. Acceptance helps untangle love from control. You learn that caring for someone does not give you authority over their choices. Each person is on their own journey, learning at their own pace. When you stop trying to rewrite someone else's path, relationships become less heavy and more authentic. Another important aspect of acceptance is emotional maturity. Immature minds seek to blame. Mature minds seek to understand. When someone disappoints you, acceptance allows you to pause and reflect rather than react. You begin to recognize patterns instead of taking everything personally. This awareness reduces emotional volatility and helps you respond thoughtfully rather than impulsively. Acceptance also protects inner peace. When you constantly resist people's behavior, your mind remains agitated. You replay conversations, imagine different outcomes, and hold on to resentment. So acceptance ends this inner noise. It allows you to say, this is how things are right now, without surrendering your self-respect. Peace does not come from controlling others. It comes from controlling how much power their actions have over your emotions. Accepting people as they are also encourages compassion. When you stop expecting perfection, you start seeing humanity. You notice struggles instead of flaws, intentions instead of mistakes. This compassionate view does not make you naive, it makes you balanced. You can still set boundaries, say no, and protect your well being while remaining kind at heart. Over time, acceptance reshapes relationships. Conflicts reduce because you stop fighting reality. Communication becomes clearer because you are not speaking from frustration but from understanding. You choose responses consciously rather than emotionally. This creates stability and trust both within yourself and with others. Ultimately, acceptance is an act of self-care. It frees you from the burden of constant disappointment and emotional exhaustion. Life becomes simpler not because people change, but because you do. When you accept people as they are, you reclaim peace, preserve energy, and create space for genuine connection without the weight of unrealistic expectations. Ego creates conflict because it is constantly trying to protect an image rather than understand reality. It reacts quickly, speaks defensively, and assumes threat even where none exists. Ego is fragile by nature. It feels challenged by disagreement and diminished by difference. This is why even small misunderstandings can turn into long-lasting conflicts. When ego leads, the mind is always on guard, always preparing to defend itself, and always searching for validation. This state of inner tension quietly drains energy and peace. Kindness, in contrast, creates freedom because it does not depend on winning or being right. It allows you to step out of the mental battlefield where every interaction feels like a competition. When you choose kindness, you are no longer enslaved by the need to prove yourself. You speak because it is necessary, not because your ego feels attacked. This inner freedom is subtle but powerful. It allows you to remain calm even when others are reactive, and grounded even when situations are chaotic. Ego-driven conflict often begins with assumptions. A tone is misread, a message is misunderstood, or an action is taken personally. Ego immediately jumps to conclusions and demands a response. Kindness introduces curiosity instead of judgment. It asks what might be happening here, rather than how dare they? This shift in perception alone can dissolve many conflicts before they escalate. When you stop assuming bad intentions, emotional reactions soften naturally. Another reason ego creates conflict is its attachment to identity. People strongly identify with opinions, roles, and status. When these are questioned, ego interprets it as a personal attack. It allows you to disagree without disrespect and to listen without needing to dominate. You realize that differing views do not threaten your worth. This understanding reduces defensiveness and opens the door to healthy dialogue instead of confrontation. Kindness also frees you from carrying emotional baggage. Ego holds grudges because it wants justice, acknowledgement, or apology. It replays events repeatedly, keeping the wound alive. Kindness chooses release over resentment. It understands that holding on to anger hurts the holder more than the offender. Letting go does not mean forgetting or excusing. It means choosing peace over prolonged suffering. This release creates emotional space and lightness. In relationships, ego seeks control while kindness seeks connection. Ego wants to win arguments. Kindness wants to preserve harmony. When kindness leads, conversations become less about proving a point and more about understanding each other. Trust grows because people feel safe, not judged. Over time, this reduces recurring conflicts and builds emotional security. Kindness also frees you from external validation. Ego needs constant reassurance, praise, and recognition. When these are missing, frustration arises. Kindness is self-sustaining. It comes from inner alignment rather than outer approval. This makes you emotionally independent. You no longer need others to behave a certain way for you to feel okay. Living with kindness does not mean avoiding difficult conversations or suppressing truth. It means expressing truth without aggression and setting boundaries without hostility. This balance is where true freedom lies. When ego steps aside, conflicts lose their power. The mind becomes quieter, relationships become healthier, and life feels less like a struggle and more like a flow. Ego creates conflict because it is constantly trying to protect an image rather than understand reality. It reacts quickly, speaks defensively, and assumes threat even where none exists. Ego is fragile by nature. It feels challenged by disagreement and diminished by difference. This is why even small misunderstandings can turn into long-lasting conflicts. When ego leads, the mind is always on guard, always preparing to defend itself, and always searching for validation. This state of inner tension quietly drains energy and peace. Kindness, in contrast, creates freedom because it does not depend on winning or being right. It allows you to step out of the mental battlefield where every interaction feels like a competition. When you choose kindness, you are no longer enslaved by the need to prove yourself. You speak because it is necessary, not because your ego feels attacked. This inner freedom is subtle but powerful. It allows you to remain calm even when others are reactive and grounded even when situations are chaotic. Ego-driven conflict often begins with assumptions. A tone is misread, a message is misunderstood, or an action is taken personally. Ego immediately jumps to conclusions and demands a response. Kindness introduces curiosity instead of judgment. It asks, what might be happening here? Rather than how dare they? How dare they? This shift in perception alone can dissolve many conflicts before they escalate. When you stop assuming bad intentions, emotional reactions soften naturally. Another reason ego creates conflict is its attachment to identity. People strongly identify with opinions, roles, and status. When these are questioned, ego interprets it as a personal attack. Kindness loosens this attachment. It allows you to disagree without disrespect and to listen without needing to dominate. You realize that differing views do not threaten your worth. This understanding reduces defensiveness and opens the door to healthy dialogue instead of confrontation. Kindness also frees you from carrying emotional baggage. Ego holds grudges because it wants justice, acknowledgement, or apology. It replays events repeatedly, keeping the wound alive. Kindness chooses release over resentment. It understands that holding on to anger hurts the holder more than the offender. Letting go does not mean forgetting or excusing. It means choosing peace over prolonged suffering. This release creates emotional space and lightness. In relationships, ego seeks control while kindness seeks connection. Ego wants to win arguments. Kindness wants to preserve harmony. When kindness leads, conversations become less about proving a point and more about understanding each other. Trust grows because people feel safe, not judged. Over time, this reduces recurring conflicts and builds emotional security. Kindness also frees you from external validation. Ego needs constant reassurance, praise, and recognition. When these are missing, frustration arises. Kindness is self-sustaining. It comes from inner alignment rather than outer approval. This makes you emotionally independent. You no longer need others to behave a certain way for you to feel okay. Living with kindness does not mean avoiding difficult conversations or suppressing truth. It means expressing truth without aggression and setting boundaries without hostility. This balance is where true freedom lies. When ego steps aside, conflicts lose their power. The mind becomes quieter, relationships become healthier, and life feels less like a struggle and more like a flow. Silence can be far more powerful than winning an argument because it preserves inner peace. While arguments often inflate ego and drain energy, most arguments are not about truth. They are about proving a point, or seeking validation. When emotions take control, logic quietly exits the conversation. In such moments, silence becomes a conscious choice rather than a passive one. It is a decision to value peace over momentary satisfaction, wisdom over noise. Arguments usually promise victory but deliver exhaustion. Even when you win, the aftertaste is rarely pleasant. Relationships feel strained, the mind keeps replaying words, and inner calm is disturbed. Silence avoids this emotional residue. It allows situations to cool down naturally instead of escalating. When you remain silent, you give yourself time to observe, reflect, and understand what truly matters. Many conflicts lose their importance when viewed from a calmer mental state. Silence also demonstrates emotional intelligence. It shows that you are not controlled by impulses or provoked by every remark. People often say hurtful things out of insecurity, frustration, or misunderstanding. Responding immediately gives their words power over you. Silence takes that power back. It communicates strength without confrontation. Not every comment deserves a reply, and not every misunderstanding requires explanation. There is also clarity in silence. When you stop defending yourself unnecessarily, you begin to see situations more objectively. You realize that some arguments are endless because the other person is not listening to understand, only to respond. Engaging further only deepens frustration. Silence breaks this cycle. It sets a boundary without aggression, signaling that you refuse to participate in emotional chaos. Silence can also be a form of self-respect. Constantly explaining yourself or justifying your choices can slowly erode confidence. When you are secure in your values, you don't need approval from everyone. Silence says, I know who I am. This quiet confidence is far more convincing than loud explanations. Over time, people begin to sense this strength and respect it, even if they don't agree with you. Another important aspect of silence is its ability to prevent regret. Words spoken in anger cannot be taken back. Be taken back. Silence protects you from saying something that may damage relationships permanently. It gives emotions time to settle so that if communication does happen later, it comes from clarity rather than reaction. Many misunderstandings resolve themselves when given space. Silence also invites introspection. When you stop arguing outwardly, attention turns inward. You begin to ask whether the issue is truly worth your energy. Often you realize that peace is more valuable than being right. This realization is a sign of maturity. Life becomes lighter when you stop carrying the burden of unnecessary conflicts. Choosing silence does not mean suppressing truth or avoiding difficult conversations forever. It means choosing the right moment and the right mindset to speak. Silence creates that space. In that space, wisdom grows. Over time, you learn that strength is not always loud and power is not always visible. Sometimes the strongest response is no response at all. Expecting everyone to think, behave, or respond like you is one of the biggest sources of disappointment in life. Human beings are shaped by their own experiences, beliefs, and emotions, which are often invisible to others. When we project our standards onto others, we set ourselves up for frustration. Acceptance begins when you realize that each person is navigating their own journey with their own lessons, challenges, and pace. No one owes you alignment with your expectations, and no one is obligated to act in a way that satisfies your desires. Expectations create a constant cycle of hope and disappointment. You hope someone will act, respond, or understand as you would, and when they don't, resentment builds. This resentment quietly eats away at peace, slowly poisoning relationships and even your own mental well-being. By reducing expectations, you free yourself from this unnecessary suffering. You learn to appreciate people for who they are rather than who you want them to be. The shift opens the door to authentic interactions that are grounded in reality rather than fantasy. When expectations decrease, gratitude naturally increases. Instead of focusing on what is missing, you notice what is present. The small gestures, the moments of cooperation, and the effort others make, even if imperfect, become valuable. Gratitude replaces irritation with appreciation, and relationships begin to feel lighter. People respond differently when they feel appreciated rather than pressured, and this positive energy multiplies. Lowering expectations also strengthens emotional resilience. Life is unpredictable, and people will inevitably act in ways that surprise or disappoint you. When your sense of peace is tied to rigid expectations, every deviation feels like a personal failure or injustice. But when you accept that human behavior is inherently varied and unpredictable, disappointments lose their sting. You begin to respond with understanding instead of frustration, patience instead of anger, and compassion instead of judgment. Another important aspect of reducing expectations is self-awareness. Often, the disappointment we feel from others reflects unmet needs or insecurities within ourselves. By recognizing this, we stop projecting our inner dissatisfaction onto the external world. Acceptance is not passive. It is a conscious choice to navigate life with clarity and emotional maturity. It allows you to protect your inner peace without controlling or changing others. Expectations also limit learning. When we demand that people act in predictable ways, we fail to notice the lessons that come from unpredictability. People behave according to their understanding and experiences, not our assumptions. Every interaction, even challenging ones, becomes an opportunity to develop patience, empathy, and problem-solving skills. By letting go of rigid expectations, you transform potential frustration into personal growth. Finally, reducing expectations creates space for true connection. Relationships flourish when both parties feel free to be themselves. There is no constant pressure to meet someone else's ideal. Instead, there is room for genuine understanding and mutual respect. This freedom allows bonds to deepen and communication becomes more honest and less defensive. Acceptance of reality, rather than resistance to it, brings harmony both internally and externally. In the end, lowering expectations does not mean giving up hope or disengaging from others. It means seeing people clearly, understanding the limits of control, and valuing peace above insistence. Life becomes lighter, relationships become more meaningful, and emotional energy is preserved for growth, learning, and joy. When you accept people as they are and reduce unrealistic expectations, disappointment diminishes, and daily life becomes far richer, calmer, and more rewarding. Recognizing that everyone carries unseen struggles is a profound key to developing empathy and living with emotional balance. We often judge people by what we see on the surface, their words, actions, or attitudes, without realizing that every individual is navigating battles that are invisible to the outside world. A sharp remark, impatience, or indifference from someone may not be a reflection of their character, but a reflection of the pressures, fears, or pain they are carrying internally. Understanding this shifts the way we interpret interactions and reduces unnecessary resentment. Most people live with hidden burdens. Some wrestle with personal loss, financial stress, health challenges, or unresolved trauma. Others carry emotional wounds from childhood, failed relationships, or repeated disappointments. Because these struggles are not always visible, their impact on behavior is often misunderstood. When we become aware that every person has a story we cannot fully see, it becomes easier to pause before reacting with anger, judgment, or criticism. Compassion replaces irritation, and patience replaces impulsive reaction. This awareness also encourages humility. It reminds us that, just like others, we ourselves are not always fully seen or understood. Everyone is doing their best within the limitations of their experience. Recognizing hidden struggles fosters a sense of solidarity with humanity. It helps us understand that life is challenging for everyone in unique ways. This perspective softens the mind and heart, reducing the need to compare, criticize, or compete unnecessarily. Empathy cultivated through this understanding transforms relationships. When we approach interactions with the assumption that others may be struggling silently, our responses become gentler. Conflicts are navigated with calmness, patience, and perspective. Even difficult conversations are handled with care, because the goal shifts from winning or asserting dominance to understanding and connecting. This does not mean tolerating harmful behavior, but it does mean responding thoughtfully rather than emotionally. Recognizing hidden struggles also promotes self-compassion. Just as others face unseen battles, we too have internal conflicts and vulnerabilities. When we see these challenges in ourselves without judgment, we become more forgiving of our mistakes and less critical of our weaknesses. This inner kindness strengthens resilience, allowing us to face our own difficulties without being overwhelmed by shame, guilt, or fear. Another benefit of understanding hidden struggles is perspective. Life often feels unfair when we focus only on surface-level comparisons. We may envy others' apparent success or happiness without realizing the struggles behind it. Awareness of unseen challenges helps us appreciate the effort, resilience, and courage that may lie beneath appearances. This perspective reduces envy, jealousy, and impatience, replacing them with admiration, gratitude, and acceptance. Finally, recognizing hidden struggles fosters emotional intelligence. We learn to read between the lines, interpret behavior with curiosity instead of assumption, and respond with thoughtfulness. Our social interactions improve because we communicate with awareness and care. Emotional energy is preserved rather than wasted on unnecessary conflicts or judgments. Ultimately, understanding that everyone is fighting their own battles quietly changes how we live day to day. It encourages patience, strengthens relationships, enhances empathy, and promotes self-awareness, law-awareness. Life becomes less about reacting to perceived slights and more about responding with insight and kindness. When we remember that people's actions are often shaped by unseen struggles, we approach the world with gentleness, wisdom, and balance, making daily life calmer, more compassionate, and more fulfilling. Daily self-reflection is one of the most powerful habits for personal growth and long-term transformation. Life moves fast, and without taking time to pause, observe, and evaluate our actions, we often drift through days without learning or improvement. Reflection is the conscious act of reviewing our thoughts, behaviors, and decisions, not with judgment, but with awareness. It allows us to understand patterns, recognize mistakes, and identify areas where we can become better versions of ourselves. When we reflect daily, we begin to notice small details that usually escape our attention. How did we respond to challenges today? Did we act with patience or frustration? Did we listen with understanding or interrupt with ego? These questions, when asked sincerely, help uncover habits and tendencies that shape our lives. Without reflection, we may continue repeating behaviors that do not serve us, unaware of the impact they have on our relationships, emotions, and overall growth. Daily self-reflection also strengthens self-discipline. By examining how we spend our time, energy, and attention, we become aware of distractions, procrastination, or wasted effort. This awareness is not meant to induce guilt, but to guide us toward more intentional living. When reflection becomes a habit, it acts as a compass, helping us align daily actions with long-term goals. Over time, these small, consistent adjustments compound into significant progress. Another profound benefit of reflection is clarity in decision-making. Life constantly presents choices, and without self-awareness, decisions are often reactive or impulsive. Reflecting on past actions and outcomes gives perspective. We learn what approaches lead to harmony, productivity, and growth, and which ones result in unnecessary stress or conflict. This clarity allows future decisions to be more thoughtful, measured, and aligned with our values. Self-reflection also cultivates emotional intelligence. By reviewing our reactions, we understand the triggers that cause frustration, anger, or sadness. Recognizing these patterns gives us the ability to respond consciously rather than react impulsively. Over time, this awareness fosters patience, empathy, and resilience. We become less likely to be overwhelmed by external circumstances, knowing that our internal response can be managed and improved. Reflection nurtures humility. It reminds us that perfection is impossible and that every day offers lessons. Even small mistakes are opportunities to grow if we observe them honestly. Rather than dwelling on failure or being overly critical, self-reflection encourages constructive learning. It shifts the focus from self-blame to self-improvement, promoting a positive cycle of growth and confidence. Furthermore, daily reflection enhances gratitude. When we take the time to review the day, we naturally notice moments of kindness, support, and small victories that might otherwise be overlooked. This acknowledgement of what went well balances our perspective, preventing us from being consumed by problems or setbacks. Gratitude during reflection strengthens emotional being and optimism. Finally, self-reflection reinforces accountability. It reminds us that while we cannot control everything, we are responsible for our choices, behaviors, and mindset. This accountability empowers us to make conscious improvements rather than waiting for circumstances or others to change. It fosters a proactive approach to life, where personal growth is a central focus. In essence, daily self-reflection transforms ordinary days into opportunities for improvement rather than lack of. By observing, learning, and adjusting, we gradually align our thoughts, actions, and emotions with our higher values. Life becomes more intentional, relationships improve, emotional resilience grows, and personal growth becomes inevitable. When self-reflection is practiced consistently, we realize that winning life every day is not about extraordinary achievements, but about becoming slightly better, wiser, and more conscious with each passing day. Developing a mindset that your inner world shapes your outer world is one of the most transformative realizations in life. Too often, people blame circumstances, other people, or external events for their unhappiness, stress, or failures. They believe that if situations were different, life would feel better. But the truth is, the external world is neutral. It is your perception, reactions, and mental state that determine whether life feels heavy or light, chaotic or peaceful. By cultivating a strong and calm inner world, you create a foundation that allows you to navigate any circumstance with grace and resilience. Your thoughts are the architects of your emotions. When the mind dwells on fear, resentment, or envy, the world appears hostile and challenges feel insurmountable. When the mind is focused on gratitude, understanding, and growth, even difficult situations feel manageable and teachable. This principle emphasizes personal responsibility, Not in a way that induces guilt, but in a way that empowers. You may not control what happens outside, but you always control your response, and your response shapes your reality more than external events ever could. The inner world also determines the quality of relationships. People who are constantly anxious, reactive, or insecure often attract conflict, misunderstanding, or negativity, even unintentionally. Conversely, those who cultivate patience, clarity, and compassion within themselves naturally create harmonious and supportive interactions. Their calm presence influences others, reducing tension and fostering trust. In this way, internal balance acts as a magnet for positive connections, while turmoil within often reproduces turbulence externally. Developing your inner world requires consistent practices such as mindfulness, reflection, gratitude, and emotional regulation. These practices allow the mind to observe itself, understand triggers, and release unproductive thoughts. Over time, this leads to emotional resilience, a state where challenges no longer provoke extreme reactions and disappointments no longer define your self-worth. People who master this inner stability are not unaffected by life's trials, but they navigate them with composure, clarity, and strength. Another aspect of inner world mastery is the ability to maintain perspective. External events are often temporary and relative. A minor setback can feel catastrophic if the mind is unsettled, while the same event can be viewed as an opportunity for growth. If the inner world is steady, this perspective reduces suffering, increases patience, and allows for more thoughtful decision-making. The more grounded your inner world, the less external chaos can disturb your balance. Cultivating your inner world also encourages proactive growth rather than reactive living. Instead of being swept away by circumstances, you respond intentionally. Now, you set boundaries where needed, choose your battles wisely, and invest energy in areas that truly matter. This mindset leads to efficiency, focus, and peace because actions are guided by conscious choice rather than emotional impulsiveness. Life feels more meaningful when actions stem from internal clarity rather than external pressure. Finally, recognizing the power of the inner world shifts priorities. Material success, recognition, or control over others may feel urgent, but they are transient. The true source of lasting contentment is a well-tended inner life. Meditation, reflection, gratitude, self-awareness, and emotional regulation are investments with returns that never diminish. They continually strengthen resilience, joy, and wisdom regardless of external conditions. When you consistently nurture your inner world, life begins to respond differently. Challenges no longer dominate your mind. Relationships become more harmonious, and your actions carry intention rather than reaction. You realize that winning life every day is not about perfect circumstances, but about cultivating a mind and heart that remains steady, clear, and compassionate. The outer world becomes less threatening because the inner world has become your sanctuary, a place from which every day can be faced with courage, clarity, and quiet strength. Cultivating small, consistent daily habits is one of the most powerful ways to win life every day, because transformation rarely happens through grand gestures or sudden breakthroughs. Life is shaped by the accumulation of small choices repeated consistently over time. Whether it is how we manage our thoughts, respond to challenges, nurture relationships, or care for our health, the habits we practice daily define the trajectory of our lives. Tiny actions, when compounded, create significant results that far outweigh occasional bursts of effort. Many people underestimate the power of consistency. They expect dramatic change from sporadic effort and become discouraged when results are slow to appear. Yet nature itself demonstrates the power of small, consistent actions. A river shapes mountains not by force, but by continuous flow. Similarly, daily habits, no matter how small, gradually shape character, mindset, and circumstances. Writing for 10 minutes, practicing patience in small interactions, exercising for a short period, or reflecting for a few minutes each day may seem trivial, but the cumulative impact is profound over weeks, months, and years. Daily habits also serve as anchors for discipline and self-mastery. When we consistently follow positive routines, the mind and body become accustomed to structured behavior. This reduces the reliance on motivation, which fluctuates, and instead fosters self-discipline, which grows stronger with repetition. For example, starting the day with gratitude, exercising regularly, or reading consistently trains the mind to act with intention rather than react impulsively. Over time, these small practices build resilience, focus, and clarity. Another critical aspect of small daily habits is the ripple effect they create in other areas of life. Consistently practicing mindfulness, for instance, not only reduces stress but also improves decision making, relationships, and productivity. Regularly showing kindness strengthens empathy and nurtures trust in relationships. Maintaining physical health through simple daily exercise enhances energy, mood, and mental sharpness. These habits, though modest individually, interact to create a life of balance, stability, and growth. Consistency in daily habits also nurtures patience and realistic expectations. Transformation is rarely instantaneous. By committing to small, repeatable actions, we train ourselves to embrace progress gradually rather than demanding instant results. This patience reduces frustration, comparison, and self-criticism, allowing growth to feel organic and sustainable. Each small step, though seemingly insignificant, contributes to a sense of momentum and accomplishment that builds over time. Daily habits also cultivate self-awareness and intentionality. When we engage in reflective routines, journaling, meditation, or reviewing the day, we become conscious of patterns in behavior, thought, and emotion. This awareness allows us to adjust, gradually reinforcing positive tendencies and addressing unproductive ones. Without daily reflection, growth becomes random, scattered, and difficult to sustain. Finally, cultivating small daily habits strengthens confidence and self-trust. When you consistently show up for yourself, even in minor ways, you prove to your own mind that you are capable, reliable, and committed to improvement. This builds inner security that does not depend on external validation. Confidence grows quietly, rooted in repeated action, rather than loud declarations of fleeting success. In essence, small, consistent daily habits are the building blocks of a life well lived. They transform ordinary days into opportunities for growth, stability, and fulfillment. By committing to small intentional actions every day, you cultivate discipline, resilience, and clarity. Over time, these habits compound, creating momentum that makes challenges manageable, relationships stronger, and personal growth inevitable. Winning life every day is less about extraordinary moments and more about the quiet power of consistent, meaningful action that shapes the mind, heart, and character over time.